Over the past couple of weeks, the pro-life stall has appeared at the NSC on a number of occasions, and the manual's dealt with it in quite an angry manner. How would you deal with it? Would it be in the same way?
No. I actually spoke to the pro-life people a few days ago because I found their leaflets, and I find their leaflets quite offensive. It said something like abortion worse than rape, and I went and I spoke to them. I said, look, I do think you have a right to say your opinion, but I think the way that you're saying it is really offensive to students, because there are some students on campus which have been raped, and there are students on campus who have had to go through the trauma of having an abortion. It's not something that people take lightly. It's not like I've heard them say stuff like, oh, it's just a form of contraceptive, and that's just so insulting because it's a huge deal for someone. And they started having a really big go at me, and they were just like, do you know what it's like to be raped? And I was just like, look, that's not the way to deal with this at all. I said, look, I can't force you to leave, because it's not my right, but I do think that you need to totally rephrase this because you're being quite offensive. So I mean, I am pro-choice, but I do think they have a right to speak, but not like that. I think there needs to be some sort of dialogue, and possibly with someone who is slightly less extreme than what they're trying to put out there.
I've noticed you have quite a conservative background. How will that affect your role? For example, the Conservatives declined to back LSE-SU anti-BNP campaign this year. How would you circumvent that?
Okay, first of all, just clarify. My conservative background, I'm socially very, very left-wing, and I always have been. I'm pro-choice. I'm totally backing marriage for gays, etc. Right-wing slightly on policy when it comes to economics, but that doesn't really change anything when it comes to ed welfare. The most important thing when it comes to ed welfare is someone that really, really cares about people, and I am the sort of person, when I'm called at 3 o'clock in the morning by a friend who needs my help, who will get out of bed and travel across London for them, and that's what I think really matters for ed welfare. I don't think it's about politics. I never have done. When it comes to the Conservative future, not refusing to have something against the BNP, I think that's wrong. I think that Michael Watt made a mistake there, and I think that it doesn't matter if it's a right-wing or left-wing party. It's an extreme party which breeds hatred, and consequently we should fight against them. I think ultimately it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if you're going to vote for a right-wing party or a left-wing party, centre-right, centre-left, as long as it's not the BNP, because they're such an awful organisation. So I would say that we should hold a campaign against it. And I've said, in my manifesto, if I do get elected, I will totally back the idea to have an anti-BNP campaign during the EU elections.
You're quite well known for your non-PC comments, both on air through Pulse and in public settings. How are you going to rein yourself in when you're dealing with the very sensitive issues you have to deal with as a welfare officer?
Okay, I presume you're referring to what I said on the radio a few weeks ago, and I did apologise for that. It was really very insensitive of me, and I shouldn't have said it, and I never will again. When it comes to education and welfare officer, I obviously wouldn't say anything like that. I have learned from my mistakes. I sent an apology email, and it won't happen again. You've got my word.
Okay, turning to residences.
Yeah.
You've been a residences officer. You've also been employed by residences, LSE. Isn't that going to be a nightmare for the residences officer next year? Because won't you just be taking over that role? How can you resist it?
How can I resist it? Well, assuming I get the job of SAB, I won't be working in residences anymore. But I found working as a residences officer and working within the school, I came across a lot of problems. Because the school, you have a conflict of interest, and my interest was always students, and it always has been, and I've always kicked up a fuss at my job when something's gone wrong for students, and it really bugged them that I was going to become residences officer. But I mean, residences has always been really important to me, because I think that the experience that you have in halls of residence, it really affects the rest of your university stay. I know when I was at UCL, because I spent a year there, and I lived in intercollegiate halls, I was so miserable, and it was a lot to do with my halls of residence and the support that I didn't receive from the university or the Students' Union. So I think that, no, I'll support whoever the residences officer is, and I think both the candidates have got some really good policies. But I really do want to work on welfare issues in halls, and I suppose I'm their line manager effectively, but I'm not going to overcrowd them.